Namaste, namaste, and welcome, welcome, welcome everyone here to Awakenings Moments to Inspire. It is going to be an absolutely fabulous show here today, and I am deeply looking forward to any co-creative process that we have here, any kind of uh, uh, things that you want to talk to us about, just be free to put it in the chat. It's going to be a day of co-creation and openness. It's going to be fabulous. I can't wait to introduce you all to my guest today. It's going to be about lifelong learning and the inspiration that you can find there. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. So to start with, I usually like to kick the show off with a beautiful Ave Saw breath. And if for those of you who do not know what Ave Saw breath is, I am going to just briefly describe it for that you have a better understanding of what's going on. And if there is any problems, we are streaming at onenesstalkradio.com, Oneness Talk Radio YouTube, and Oneness Talk Radio Facebook. So you can catch us on all of those. The stream has been a little wobbly the last few days with various hosts. So I would just, if you can't get us on one, scooch over to the other and get us there. So my name is Angel, and I am just so happy to be here with you. It was a bit of a technical difficulty this morning, so I think our Ave Saw breath will help to clear that air, open up, and provide clarity in the show that's coming up here. So Ave Saw breath basically is from the Yoga of Self-Ascension. Now, what is the Yoga of Self-Ascension, you ask? Well, if you want some more information on that, please go to shriandkira.com and you can learn all about the Yoga of Self-Ascension there. And it is a breathing exercise that is inhaled through your nose and exhaled throughout your mouth. But when you're inhaling in through your nose, you are you're thinking, you're feeling, you're holding at Ave. And what Ave means, it's Latin, and it means hail. And hail to what? Hail to the divine, hail to the divine masculine, divine feminine, hail to the divine spark inside of you, right? And hail to Gaia, hail to hello. It can be a greeting of respect to the universe, just to announce your presence. Hi, I am here. Hail, I am here, right? And the saw is an exhale, a release, a surrender to the moment that you have in front of you, to the gifts that are being brought to you, and to the feelings and honoring those feelings and emotions that may be moving throughout you. So we'll do 3 Ave Saw breaths. It's very simple. Again, inhale through your nose, exhale out your mouth. And as you do so, you think of a golden light just enveloping you and clearing out all of that negative energy that no longer serves you. You no longer require it. So it's time to just simply release it, right? So, hand on our heart, and 3 beautiful Ave Saw breaths. And I'll say Ave, and we'll take our first breath. Here we go. Ave. Ave. One more. Ave. Beautiful. Thank you so much. That was just amazing. So before we go on with our guest, because I am just excited for you all to meet this beautiful, talented lady, I just wanted to bring in the numerology, the ascended numerology for today, and even bring in a little bit of the ascended numerology from the super full moon yesterday. And yesterday was an 11. And then when I typed and I found out, I did all of the ascended numerology, and I found that today is a 12. And of course it's a 12. And just to let you know, that doesn't necessarily always happen. The day before isn't necessarily 11. The next day is a 12. So that the fact that is an 11, which is a mirror. So what was the super moon trying to show you last night, right? What was all of day yesterday trying to show you? What was mirroring in front of you? And what did you learn from that? Because after that super full moon, it just used that energy to cement that knowing and understanding inside of you so that you can step into the 12 today, which of course it's a 12 today, because the 12 is completion, the full knowing of and understanding of and acknowledgement of your soul, right? And so feeling into today, I was just all of these synchronicities always happen. And with ascended numerology, as I practice it more and more and more, I am just amazed at how the synchronicities and how it all lines up. It is just absolutely amazing. So I was feeling into this morning, into the 12, and this is what came up for me. The 12 is the union of you, your divine soul, and your vessel, total completion. The blue jewel of the ascended heart rises to help propel the ascended chakras open and perfect this after the super full moon of last night. There is no separation between the body, the mind, and the soul. So release it and the judgment around that separation. You are one with self, one with the beings around you, with Gaia, with the universe. Hand to heart. Feel into this energy and knowing. Feel the wholeness, the connectedness within, around, and through you that allows you to finally know that we are all one and we have an opportunity and honor model this oneness, embracing all the gifts from the co-creative process and that is shown to us with ease and grace and flow. You are ready. It is your time. And so that's what the number 12 in Ascended Numerology brought to my heart this morning. And I hope it brings so many beautiful gifts to you today as well, because it truly is a remarkable day of energy and fullness. Your soul knows what it's doing. Just let it guide you and see what magic happens today, right? So, just a couple more housekeeping things, and then we'll get right to our guest because we started a little bit late, and I want this lady to have as much time as possible with you. I wanted to let you all know that I will be having a new moon ceremony just before our lineage holder ceremony on the 28th of July. So the new moon is on the 28th. We had a lineage holder meeting with the super full moon yesterday, and we'll have another one again on the 28th as well. And it begins at 8 o'clock. So if you're still interested, please go to Shri and Kira and learn a little bit more about that. It's a global meditation for the unity and consciousness of the planet and for balance and peace of the planet as well. So the second night is on the 28th, but I will be hosting a new moon circle just before that. It begins at 6:30. And if you are wanting to know a little bit more about that, you can go to my website, and I am learning, people. I now figured out how to put the banner up along the bottom. You can go to my website of selfascension.ca, or if you want, you can also email me at waterloveandlight@gmail.com and just register for that, because it'll be a Zoom meeting. So I'll have to send you the link. So please, all are welcome. It is going to be a sharing circle where we talk about all of the beautiful things we've birthed in the month and all of the things that we hope to birth coming up in August. So there's so many new and exciting things this month, and I hope that I'll see you there at the new moon ceremony circle. So I'll just put that back. And all right. Now, before we begin, this lovely lady has some beautiful inspiration to bestow upon you. If you have any questions for her, please, by all means, or even for myself, by all means, put them in the chat. If you want to chat with each other as well, spread your love and joy and all the things that you've been co-creating this week. Again, put them in the chat, and I monitor that, and we'll just co-create this hour together. So let's get going. I'm just going to take a lovely drink of water. I hope everyone is drinking their water on these powerful, energetic days, because not only does it hydrate you, it just gifts you with clarity and refreshment, I find. So it does so much more than just give your body water. Water means so much more, right? Thank you. All right. So this beautiful lady that I have lined up for my guest today, she is an amazing, amazing woman. I actually have known her more or less off and on my whole life. I've known of her. In fact, her mother was my first grade teacher and one of my favorite teachers throughout my entire lifetime. And I honor that woman as well. She was a total gem. She is a total gem. And I just truly bow before her and all that she has taught me. So I'm sure she's imparted some of her glorious wisdom upon her daughter as well. And her daughter definitely has her drive and inspiration as well. So I can't really wait for you to meet her. Her name is Judy Osborne, and she has several letters behind her name. She is an RN. She has a degree in, oh, I wrote it all down, so I'll just go back to that. She has a degree in a nursing degree. She is her RN, a nursing degree, a master's of education, and she's also working on her doctorate. I believe it's the doctorate of education. I'll have to ask her that when she comes on. She teaches at a college here in our location near our hometown. And she also went on to open her own healing center, and it's called Sharing Light, and you can go to sharinglight.ca if you want to touch base with her. And her name is Judy Osborne. She is an amazing, amazing woman. She's also writing a children's book, which is near and dear to my heart, as many of you who have been following me for a while know that children's books and writing and inspiring young people is just a passion for me. So this woman also shares her passion for education. I even learned a few things this morning about wanting to open an educational facility for homeless people. She's just an amazing, amazing woman. So no further ado, I'm just going to introduce you to her. Judy, come on in.
Thank you so much, Angel, and thank you to all of you for having me here today. And that was a lovely introduction. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
My name is Judy, and I'm 57 years of age. I have been a lifelong learner, and actually, I've been in post-secondary my entire adult life. I love school, I love teaching, and I love learning. And for the last 37 years, I've been nursing. I love being a nurse, and I'm very grateful that I get to teach nursing. And I've been teaching for the last 18 and a half years. I actually teach both college and university level nursing.
Wow.
And it's interesting because when I was growing up, I could never decide if I wanted to be a nurse or a teacher.
Yeah.
And my mom, of course, was a school teacher, and she was very passionate about her work. And I remember her setting up her classroom in August and
Yeah.
bringing home this blue tub, and it always had really cool stuff in it, like little apple booklets and so on. And I remember her doing a lot of education as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at university when she was teaching. And I also was very passionate about the idea of being a nurse. And
Yeah.
I feel very grateful to teach nursing. Um, yeah, so education is important to me. If we go back in time to the early 70s when I started school, it wasn't the easiest transition for me, actually. I was a December baby and quite petite, and I went right into grade one. In those days, we didn't have kindergarten in our area. We I don't even know if there was a nursery school. I think there was like play school that kids could go to, but in terms of formal kindergarten, that wasn't really a thing when I started.
Hmm.
So this leap into grade one was a little bit of a steep one. I had some separation anxiety, and I remember being a little bit lost when I was at school. I always had friends, and I loved playing outdoors with my friends, but I remember not always knowing what I was to do. And reading did not come easy to me in the early
Hmm.
years. And fortunately, I had parents who supported me at home, and I was able to get by. I got through to grade six, and I graduated with my peers, and off I went to grade seven. And the transition to grade seven was actually a very difficult one. I
Okay.
remember, again, being quite lost in the beginning, and it just wasn't. I think my challenges that I maybe had in my earlier years were starting with me in middle school in the intermediate
Hmm.
school. So my teacher, I remember, I didn't do very well at my report card, in December, and I remember my parents going to a meeting, and the decision was made that it probably would be very beneficial for me to spend 2 years in grade seven. So I did that, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. At the time, I thought, "Oh, this doesn't seem very good." But I
Yeah.
remember my parents using the language that you're not failing, you're repeating, and they always
Yeah.
put it in a positive light.
Yeah.
And the second year in grade seven was just I flourished, and high school was a great experience for me. And I was involved in a lot of clubs and activities, and I love skating. That was one of my favorite things to do, and I did a lot of skating through my youth, and I love that. But in grade 12, it was time to kind of decide where I wanted to go for post-secondary. So I remember tossing around nursing and teaching, but I thought I would apply to nursing. I had been a volunteer at the local hospital, and I absolutely loved that. I volunteered in
Oh, no.
maternity, and it was so rewarding. I remember loving chatting with the moms and seeing the babies and handing out supplies, and I had a whole routine that I followed, and it was really awesome. But yet teaching was still in the back of my mind, but I thought I'll apply to nursing. And
Yeah.
my mom's friend had been a practicing nurse, and she used to tell me all kinds of stories about her training and about nursing, and I would always ask her questions, and it just sounded so amazing. So I applied to nursing school. I wrote this big essay as to why I thought nursing would be great for me. And I waited for the letter to come in, and the letter came in the early spring, and it was a rejection letter.
Ah.
And I was devastated. So I did grade 13, and then I applied and did the nursing assistant program, which is kind of the earlier RPN program. Um,
Okay.
so I did that program. It was a 10-month foundational program, and it was fantastic. It was really rigorous. It was really hard work. I did hours of homework every day. But I graduated and I went right to work as a nursing assistant.
You didn't
And
take no for an answer. You just kept
that's
going.
right. I did. So I did that program, and then I worked as a float nurse initially in a hospital, and I loved it. But the areas I loved the most were pediatrics and
Mhm.
mental health. We called it psychiatry in those days. Those were
Mhm.
two areas that I really loved. And somebody gave me some advice. They said, if you're really interested in those specialty areas, you may want to consider going and doing your RN. So I applied, I got into the RN program, the program I applied 2 years before that I didn't get into, I got into, and I loved it. I worked very hard. It was a lot of work. I
Mhm.
graduated. I went right to work in peds, and I loved it. It was so interesting. And I got married. We bought a house. We had two children, and I worked part time, which was perfect for having little ones at home. But when our youngest daughter started kindergarten, I thought, maybe I'll apply to university. I started to feel more confident about the whole idea of going on in my education. So I applied to university and I got accepted, and they gave me 4 credits for my nursing. And
Oh, good.
I was going to study psychology, and I got in, and my good friend gave me some advice. She had been to university before me, and she said, if I were you, I would sit at the front of the class because you're probably not going to hear at the back because it'll be loud. So I remember going into my very first lecture, and I was walking down the stairs to get to the front, like my friend had recommended. And I was so nervous. I thought I was going to fall down the stairs. I was so nervous. And I remember I had my bag and my coffee, and I was so scared. But, I was worried, I think, that I'd be the oldest person in the class because I was 35 at the time. And I looked around my classroom, and I was not the oldest in the
No,
class at
no,
all. And in
no.
fact, I saw two people I recognized and two friends of mine that I didn't know from other parts of my life, and I didn't know that they were studying this program. So it was really quite neat to have familiar
Yeah,
faces. So I worked really hard. After Christmas, we had to do, in the new year, we were doing lab reports. And I remember I didn't really know what I was doing. And I was starting to remember my early years of school and thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm doing. This is scary. But I met with
yeah,
the TA. She was super nice. And she gave me some extra support. And I ended up doing quite well in the class. And I just stayed doing part-time education at university. I fit in courses when I could. I always seemed to have journals in my bag to read if I was waiting for my kids at dance class or at the mall or wherever they were. And, lessons, I just pull out the journal. I didn't get as much done at drum lessons as I did at ballet class, but I just kind of made it fit into my life. And it was really awesome. And then in 2003, I applied to teach nursing. Somebody had recommended. I always would just help the teacher when she would bring the students because I love to teach informally. And
yeah.
she recommended I apply. So I applied and I got into teaching. And they recommended that I pursue finish out my degree in nursing rather than psychology. They said that would be a great complement to your teaching. So I transferred to an online university and I finished out my degree in nursing. They transferred my credits for me, and
Okay.
it was wonderful. And I was so excited to be done. It took me 10 years from the first class to the final to finish
Yep.
because I was busy with children and other
Cool. There
activities.
it is.
Work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So then I applied for my master's. I've always had a strong interest in working with um, students who have diverse learning needs. And I I applied to an education degree program, a master's of education, and I actually got accepted. And I absolutely loved it. It was
Loved it.
so inspiring, and I learned so much about adult learners and how adults learn and what learning looks like in the real world and how that's so valuable.
Mhm.
Um, what we learn from just being in nature and what we learn just by being in other parts of our lives and how important that learning is as well as formal education. And I designed a school in my program to support individuals who experienced homelessness. I had volunteered for many years in a food security program, and I remember during my volunteering, I would meet so many wonderful souls that were so intelligent who
Mhm.
didn't really have an opportunity to go to school. And I remember one fellow in particular saying, I never really learned to read because I never really needed to learn to read for my work. I never needed that.
Mhm.
So in my master's, one of my focuses was actually designing a school to support learners who were experiencing some diverse experiences in their lives.
Yep.
And so I graduated with my master's. I was 51 when I graduated. And then I started my doctorate and I've been working away. I start my fourth semester um, next month, the end of August, yes. But I just wanted to mention when I graduated with my master's degree, and when I was doing that lab report back in the early days of my university degree, my undergrad, I remember saying to my husband, I don't know if I was meant to go to university. This does not make sense to me, this lab report. And I was actually going to quit. And it was the TA that saved me because she said, you just need to explain this in a different manner for you.
Mhm.
And because she did that and spent the time and helped me, I was able to have success. So I couldn't find her at the university, so I emailed the professor that I had back when I was doing my degree, my psychology degree, and he said, "This is the nicest email to get first thing in the morning." I said, "I don't know. I can't find Tanya, but if you could find her, if you know where she is, can you please let her know?" I explained who I was and that she had helped me with my first credit. And I went on and I just graduated with a master's degree, and I was actually going to quit university back in the early 2000s. I was actually going to quit. So can you just let her know? And he said, "Oh my goodness, I know where she is. I know where she's working. I will pass that message on." So, yeah, so the moral of my story really is just to keep trying. And I think
Mhm.
because of my early stages of education that weren't the most easy for me, I learned the value of trying things over and over and persevering, and um, and it's influenced the way I teach too. I often will explain things a few different ways when I'm teaching my students, and I always kind of repeat what we learned last week. I try to tie that into today's work that we're doing. And I think those experiences actually were a blessing in disguise. At the time, I thought, "Oh, this isn't good that I have to spend 2 years doing a subject or doing a grade," but I think in the long run, it really helped me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so in my
Hindsight
coach
20.
absolutely. I opened Sharing Light in 2018. I had done my level 1 and level 2 of Reiki, and I did a number of, life coaching type courses. And through my practice, my private work, I do help people to find their path, because oftentimes people want to go back to school, but they just don't quite know what that looks like and how do we incorporate education into our lives.
Mhm.
We'll talk about different strategies that work. And one thing that worked for me, incorporating my studies into what I was doing, and as I mentioned about with the children when they were young and they were in activities, but also getting up early really works for me. I get up quite
Mhm.
early. That really helps me to get a lot of my work done, because my
Me
adult
too.
brain do you know, it's so awesome.
Yep.
My adult brain works differently than my youth brain, where I would often stay up later and sleep in, and today getting up early and going to bed early works much better.
Me too. I do the exact same thing. Exact same
Yes,
thing. You didn't set out though to have a life full of learning. You just flowed into it naturally. Were But you never gave up. That's the key too, that so many people out there who struggle with education. I know I have members of my family who struggle with education, formal education, I should say. But outside of a traditional classroom format, in the things that they love and they know how to do, they thrive. But
exactly.
to themselves, a lot of times society has said, well, because you didn't get it in a formal classroom, it's not acknowledgeable. It's not, we can't give you any kind of record for that like you would with a normal course or a normal education, which um, I think having schools for people with mental illness. I've been wanting to open a school myself that is around like a farm format, so that the kids would be able to come in and interact with the animals, learn more. The science is hands-on by getting down and dirty, but also being able to have a large, still a classroom setting, but it be more open and fluid, with more dynamic between the teachers and the students than you would normally have in a classroom. And it's, again, I haven't probably designed it as far down as what you've had, but it's always just been a thing in the back of my mind that I've been wanting to do too, is just open a school for kids that just couldn't fit into that square box of a classroom. And
Ex-
nowadays so many of those kids seem to be, there seems to be a lot of those children. They just, our education system seems to be now in a lot of ways not catering towards only those children who can get A's and B's, and then everyone else seems to fall behind. And it's just the sheer number, the way things are set up. So any new breath of fresh air into the education system is, in my opinion, welcome. And your ideas are amazing. So I'm just honored that you were able to share them here today with us. That's great. Did you find that on your education or on your life travels, did you run into a lot of people that would have dyslexia or learning educations that just completely put education aside, but you were able to in some way kind of turn them around and say, what is it that you do like, and go from there? That's how I used to tutor children who couldn't read. Is
Ah,
they would there were always they would never be able to fit within the classroom setting because they couldn't process things fast enough in order to catch up. But as soon as you sat them down with rocket ships or talking about, moon shots or wrestling or whatever whatever the case might have
exactly.
been, they just respond. And the moment you bring in any kind of reading material for that, whether it be a magazine or anything, they just thrive and they gobble it up and they can learn so much. But again, it's not that traditional box of learning that most of us are used to in the education system. So I was just wondering if you had any kind of inspiring stories where, if you had any that you could share, if not other than your own is absolutely inspiring too. But is there anybody, have you been able to help people like that in that way?
Yeah, just in a general sense, Angel, I find that if I can see what my students' strengths are, if you
Mm-hmm.
can tap into their strengths and really work with the strengths, um, regardless of what the situation is, it really can help. So
Mm-hmm.
using a real strength-based approach, I've done a certificate in positive psychology, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually coincidentally just finishing one. I'm just going to do my capstone shortly. It starts in a couple weeks around the character strengths in nursing students in clinical education. And a lot of my focus is on looking at those character strengths and really working with those and celebrating those, like resiliency and bravery, curiosity, for example. Those are just three to speak of. But really looking at the strengths of your students and really working with those, regardless of what you're teaching or regardless of the program that they're in, whether it's grade school or university. Um, yeah, and just stepping into their strengths and really building that trust. We talk about the nurse-client relationship and how it's based on trust. We talk about
Yeah.
that from the very early stages of nursing school.
Yes.
But the student-teacher relationship is also based on trust. And the fact that Tanya was helping me or other faculty, and I've had supports in higher education too, where a teacher would talk to me in office hours and help me to kind of process my paper and how to kind of organize it. Um, but having that trusting relationship, I think, is also very important. So the student knows that if they are feeling unsettled about something or they don't understand something, they can come to Judy and say, I don't quite know what we're doing. Can you help me? And I try to watch for those signs anyways. But I think having that trusting, warm approach, I think
Yeah.
really is important as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
my mom had when she was
Yes.
teaching one, and she would talk. She loves to, even today, she's 88. She loves to talk about teaching and the students. But we had a lot of conversations a number of years ago. We would talk a lot about teaching because she knew I was in school learning about education. And I asked her one day, I said, what's the best way if you have someone who maybe isn't quite remembering what we did yesterday? And this is where I got the idea about starting with a review. And
Mm-hmm.
mom would say, repetition, repetition, repetition. Just keep repeating it, and it will eventually resonate. And I thought that was super advice as well.
Oh yes, that's one thing I can say about your mom is the wisdom that she can impart can change lives. It certainly changed mine for sure, for sure. I did have a question that it's completely flown out of my head, but I
That's
did want for before we go any further though about the education. You're wanting to instill education upon the young people, but in a new creative outlet. I want to hear more about the birth of the idea of having birthing a children's book. So I'd love to hear the story around that.
Oh my goodness. Well, I have actually been thinking about writing a children's book. I asked my husband, he said, as long as we've been together, and we've been married almost 31 years, and we dated and we were friends before that. I've talked about it, and I'm really interested in educating children and their parents around different conditions, different mental health conditions, and just helping people to further understand, again, the strengths of illnesses, right? Because just because somebody has an illness, it doesn't mean that they don't have a lot of protective factors or a lot of strengths. And my book is called Sometimes Grandma Forgets. And it's a
Mhm.
book to help little people and their families understand Alzheimer's disease a little bit better. So just because somebody may not remember our name, it doesn't mean that they don't remember the love they have for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my first one, but I would love to do a series. I'd love to look at different mental health conditions as well, and help children to understand. Because I think if we can reach little people, catch them when they're young, and understanding that an illness doesn't mean a disaster. An illness doesn't have to be a catastrophic event. Illness can come with a lot of heartache and sadness, but there's a lot of um, people who have an illness. It doesn't mean that they can't do so many other things. So yeah, so I've been working at it, and it's been exciting.
Near and dear to your heart. Alzheimer's is also something that's affected my family as well. My grandmother, my dad's mom, passed away from Alzheimer's. So that when you were talking about sometimes grandma doesn't remember, and I'm starting to tear up. I remember the last visit I had with my grandma, and even though she couldn't remember me um, at all, she noticed that there was something different about me because I used to be very, very obese and I had lost all of my weight. And so she hadn't seen me so thin. So she must have known something because she would lovingly reach her hand out to touch my face, and then she would touch her face and just kind of rub her hands down her face as if to say, "You're smaller. You're not as round."
Oh,
And I was just like,
yeah.
she knew who I was on some level, and that I looked different, and just the love that she had for me in her eyes. I It is the last memory I have of her, but is probably the
Aw,
dearest memory I
aw,
have.
that's very
And
special.
I'll never ever forget it. So, but teaching young children about things like Alzheimer's and about disease, and that it doesn't have to be um, this life all ending affair. It will alter your life, yes, but there's
Yes.
um, again, just all of I've been through my own healing journey and with health problems and whatnot. And there were a lot of times where I felt defeated, like I'm never going to get better. Nothing's going to work. And I turned to my love of education to try and find an answer. And lo and behold, I found lots of answers, but I found more answers inside of myself that then led me out into the world to seek out what I was experiencing. And then through learning about physics and science, which was never my forte in school, I was the English and history nerd the whole way along. Um, so for me to look into science and to begin to understand and grasp and comprehend, my healing journey also became a journey of additional education that I didn't even realize I was learning as much as I was until I decided to take on some life coaching for myself and start this channel and that kind of thing. I'm like, oh, I guess I do remember and I understand this science way better than I thought I did. And I never had
Aw,
given myself credit. So if I had had, I wondered if I had had the stamina. Again, hindsight's 2020. You can't look
yes.
backwards. But I do now have a deeper appreciation for the sciences than I ever did, because it can explain so much that's going on in the world around us and within us and beyond us. And
Yes.
it can settle your spiritual journey on a new level, I find too, if you're willing to open yourself up to that. They can mesh together, science and spirituality, if you're just open to that and you're willing to learn. And again, further education, adult education, moving forward, and a lifelong learning, it doesn't have to be about sticks and bricks school classrooms. It can be about the things that you enjoy, and or the things that you find on the journey that inspire and ignite you, and that just take you a hold of you by the hand and lead you on to a new lifestyle. Look at everything that's you got to fill you fulfill both your dreams. Like, think of that. That's amazing. You became a nurse and a teacher, so you did it both. And you did it when most people would say, no, I'm having difficulty in school, I'm going to give up. You never did. And just the spark in perseverance in your soul is absolutely amazing, Judy. So
Thank
how
you.
much longer did you say? So your doctorate is going to be in further education as well, or is that in nursing?
It's an education, but I will be focusing a great deal on teaching nursing, on clinical
Mm-hmm.
education, and there's a heavy focus on higher education. So I envision that someday, not now, but later on, I might look at teaching graduate school in education, perhaps MEd, later on. But this will be my fourth course that I'm doing. I was looking the other evening, I think I have 10 more courses, and then I move into my capstone. But the other courses I have been doing the coaching courses and the positive education courses, and I did a course in the winter, coincidentally, on supporting students with learning disabilities. Those courses are all very beneficial for my doctorate as well, so they will help me in
Yeah.
writing and presenting.
Now, you never started out at the very beginning after you got your nursing? These just things just kind of flowed into your vision, and there's only been
Absolutely.
the one time when you were in university that you second guessed it, but or have you ever second guessed or looked back and thought, "Oh, I could have done this differently," or is there anything you would have done differently?
I think I probably would have done the same journey if I could live my life over again. I'd probably do it the same way because I think, first of all, I do think the early experiences in education really helped my later. If things came easy to me, I probably wouldn't have developed the study habits that I have.
Yes.
And yeah, so that I think was very, very beneficial. And even when I wasn't doing the formal university, I was learning a lot through night school
Hmm.
and even talking to senior staff. I used to love talking to nurses telling me stories about the olden days. And
Oh,
then
I
now
know.
I'm
I
now I'm
too.
one of those nurses telling my students about the olden days. But yeah, like some of their I remember one of my teachers, she's so lovely. She's actually a good friend of mine today. I've known her for, well, 38 years or so, but I remember her talking to us about her training, and they lived in the res. And she said one night they just called, "Come on, there's twins being born. Come on." And the students, some of them ran over to the nursery or ran over to the delivery room to assist. And it just sounds like such a great time in nursing education. And yeah, so I learned a lot of informally as well, a lot of listening to stories from other people, listening, even my mom telling stories about growing up on the farm. And
Hmm.
I learned a lot about resiliency in her stories of growing up on the farm with, during a difficult time in the world in some ways, but in other ways, it sounds like it was a wonderful way to live.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to impart upon our audience that about um, if they're thinking of pursuing additional education or lifelong learning, is there anything that you would like to impart, especially to those that have some problems or feel or believe that they have some problems in being able to understand and move forward with education? They're afraid because they've maybe had bad experiences in school prior to that, or they just feel that they're not able to learn. What would you say to those kind of those people?
I would say to those people to give it a try. And today's world is very different. If they had maybe not the best experience in, prior parts of their lives, today there's so many services to help people.
Hmm.
Um, Thankfully, um, people can have accommodations. They can hand assignments in, have more time to do assignments, voice to text, books that read aloud. There's all kinds of wonderful um,
Tools.
tools. Yes, thank you. Tools that can help people. And I would also, if they feel comfortable sharing with their teacher,
Yeah.
sharing, I think that I'm a little anxious about this. I haven't been to school in a long time, or my last experience wasn't the most positive. And most teachers they have office hours
Yes.
where they can have chats, even if they're not formally assisting them with a project or whatever, even to set up an opportunity to chat, because the teachers often have great tips on how to learn. And I always say to people, if you're not sure, try it. And if they get into it and it doesn't work for them, there's a timeline. You can withdraw before a certain date and be refunded too.
Yeah.
So looking into the refund policy. And people don't have to
Yeah.
study everything at once, right? Do one credit or one course and maybe take a break and do another. There's no race. As I say, it took me a whole decade to do my undergrad because there was no way I
Yeah.
could do it quicker with my family and work and
Yeah.
my children's activities, etc. It wasn't. Yeah, so there's lots of creative ways. You can take the scenic route. I tell that to my
Yeah.
students. You can always take a scenic route, and
Yep.
the scenery is lovely. The scenery's been lovely on my scenic route. I've been able to work and support my family, in other ways as well while I'm studying. And going slow and steady is sometimes the best way to achieve goals.
Yep. I agree 100%. Um, Coming out for my cat wants to say hello. Um,
Kitty.
my kitties, they're people that trouble with their education and even with my own children, my own child, I said, like you were saying, be honest with your teacher, talk to them. They're human beings, and who knows, maybe they also have problems with learning disabilities and issues that they've had to overcome. So they have all these tricks of the trade that can assist you if you're
Yeah,
open and honest and you're open to the experience. Who knows what you can learn? And even not
absolutely.
just formal education again, but even just learning new tricks and new tools that you can use in your formal education. I think people have underestimated, or they think that lifelong learning is about going to institutions to continue your education in a formal format. But really, if you think about it, it's not. If you're willing to and want to learn about new things that are going on in your life, or take up a new passion or a hobby, those are the things that drive your soul and keep you going. And I like to think too, lifelong learning helps to keep you young, right? Because you never
It
stop.
does.
Your brain just keeps you going, and it does. But when you are able to sink it into the heart center and do and learn the things that you truly love, there's where the magic is, right? There's where everything begins for you, and the flow for you has just been amazing, Judy. And believe it or not, we're almost done. So we've only got about 2 minutes left
Oh,
here.
wow.
Nobody put anything in the chat, but that doesn't mean anything. Sometimes when we get so riveting, people don't talk in the chat back and forth that much, but that's okay, no worries. This is going to go out to Facebook and YouTube and Oneness Talk Radio, so you can catch the videos there if you want to touch back with Judy at all. And again, Judy, if you want to just give it sharing, correct me if I'm wrong, sharinglight.ca.
Yes, yes.
Perfect. And
And
if you want
there's
to get hold of Judy, go there. Sorry?
yes, and I was just going to say there is a series of wellness blogs on there, and there actually is one on lifelong learning. And
Right.
yeah, there's a number of blogs around self-care and following your dreams and etc.
Excellent, excellent. So, Judy, I would love to, once you get your book completed, I would love to have you on again as a guest if you're up for it.
I would love that so much. Thank
Oh,
you. I
thank you for
appreciate
on.
it, Angel.
It has been an absolute wonderful hour of co-creation. I hope everybody out there truly has been inspired to learn something new today. Even I always like to say, there, I learned something new today. I learned something new today. I'm
Yeah.
always saying that. You could ask my husband. So, what is it that you could learn today? Oh, learn something new today. And really acknowledge it and just see what kind of gifts that it can bring to you. So, until next week, which again is the 21st. I just had to check my calendar. We'll see you on the 21st. I don't have a guest plans, but who knows what the universe will provide. So we'll talk to you then again next week. Namaste, everyone, and have a lovely
Namaste.
day.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye
Bye.
bye.
All right.